Hello and welcome, I'm Liam, the music reviewer. Who would win, Sean Kingston a jet ski or a bridge? Let me know. And today is that kind of mid-year time where we'll have already talked about all the albums. Then I really got a fully review, and now we're going to be talking about all my favourite albums. It's just as simple as that. They're not going to be in any sort of real order because I've kind of got a general idea of like what my favourite ones are, but these are just like the top 10 for me as it stands, again in no particular order because they really do keep going back and forth for me. But we'll get started. An album that prior to its release I wasn't too excited for, generally down to the fact that I think AM is a pretty disappointing album, easily the worst album that Arctic Monkeys have ever put out. It just felt very devoid of any sort of real charm. The sleaziness just felt very tacked on, and bar a good tune here or there, it just was a very predictable and safe album as far as I'm concerned. I was really just kind of off that Arctic Monkeys hype train, but with Tranquility Base Hotel Casino, I was back on it. I had first class seats. I was putting my feet on the seats. I just didn't give a fuck. And yeah, just the thick, rich atmosphere that Alex Turner and Cole craft here is just, you can't deny it. Like, even if you don't like this album, they do manage to just really build just a really good atmosphere here. I think they benefit just so much from it. It isn't really a concept album, I would say, but it definitely does border on being the most kind of like artsy project that Arctic Monkeys have ever put out. It really is them pushing themselves a great deal, and while there isn't like a standout single from this album, it's really just because everything just works so well together. Just one of those albums that I just feel the need to come back to every so often, just like transcend myself into this 80s moon hotel atmosphere thing. It's really peculiar and isn't what anyone expected from them. But I don't think anyone, or I think even though it has been quite divisive, I much prefer this direction that the band are going on as opposed to previous efforts. Now on to my second choice, which is Twin Fantasy by Car Seat Headrest. Big surprise, stop the press, my first 10 out of 10 on this channel is on my favourite albums of the year list. But really, I don't think anyone's going to argue with me. Twin Fantasy is one of the best indie rock albums of this decade. Probably one of the best indie rock albums, period. The intelligence, both in terms of songwriting and lyricism, that Will Toledo shows back in the day when the original version, which is about 7 years old I believe, came out, it's just aged like fine wine. I know that 7 years isn't a huge wait, but for a lot of people it does feel like that, and I think compared to how I felt about the original lo-fi effort, the pristine production here just makes everything so much better, but a lot more easier to understand for starters. But secondly, just there's so many like nice little bits, like there's some of these big huge expansive tracks that really aren't a really safe venture, especially when it came to the original record. But even now, after having something like Teens of the Nile, which impressed everybody, the fact that bringing this old version, updating your album and making something that's just as good, if not better, in my opinion. I prefer this to Teens of the Nile just because of how it explores mental health and sexuality in just such an intelligent, witty way. Just easily one of the best rock records of this year, and as I say, one of the best rock records of the century.
Streaky, 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 streaky.
And again, no surprise here, Death Grips are on this list for Year of the Snitch, a record that, yeah, I was hyped for, but was very anxious and was anticipating in a very kind of like shy way to make sure that I wasn't getting my hopes up too much, because the singles for me weren't all that great. But as soon as I heard them in the context of the album, that was me. I was totally won over. A song like Flies, which at first listen with the context felt fine, but just didn't really feel all that great, just works so well. Like when it goes from Death Grips Online, which is a very much more like rocky, like I said in my review, and I'll link to all the reviews of any of these records I've done at the end of this video, where it just felt like I had like an indie rock song from the 2000s, but it was just like submerged in some like really like paranormal black Chico goo, and then Flies just is the perfect contrast to that. And it's almost as if the band knew that, like they kind of wanted to basically, I think it was Mark from Spectrum Pulse that said that they were the snitch themselves, and it felt that way just from how everything was released, how everything was just like they were basically releasing all their stuff, and it felt a lot less impactful. But then once you actually listen to this album, you just get like the most rock heavy effort they've done thus far, some really great jazz as well. Just the band haven't stopped pushing themselves, and just go to show why they're one of the most important bands of the decade. So Pure Comedy was pretty good. I Love You Honey Bear was great, but as it stands, God's Favorite Customer is my favourite Flower Misty album, and I don't know how hot a take that is, and understand that a lot of people are very like on the fence about Pure Comedy in general, and they feel it's a step down as well, because God's Favorite Customer is a lot more compact, it's a lot more tight, it's pretty much like half the running time. The concept is quite grandiose as it, but as it stands, a smaller scale story and narrative works so much better for Father John Misty. It very much is like the opposite side of that same coin that was explored on I Love You Honey Bear. It's a lot more dark, but isn't devoid of that Father John Misty charm or his wit. It just like I say, his exploration of his mental health, about his own downfalls, about his own ego, are all just explored in just very interesting ways. It was one of my favourite singer-songwriter albums of the year, and as it stands, I just feel this is the Father John Misty record that's resonated with me the most. There really isn't any issues with it, bar the fact that I think the songwriter should be the ending track as opposed to being the penultimate track. Bar that, I'm only great with this album.
Every night you go to bed, you wake up just a little more in pain. Every time you dress.
Worry was one of the best albums of 2016, and felt like lightning in a bottle in the way that it managed to, like, with the power of like foresight, like managed to predict how that year at the tail end was going to be so just riddled with inner fears, both with just kind of like all these celebrities dying, with certain politicians being elected, just a general state of the world. It managed to explore both inner fears as well as just these greater fears, and I think a few people probably thought that Jeff Rosenstock just got very lucky and managed to kind of like build on that kind of atmosphere, but Post goes to show that wasn't just a one-off. Like, he is a very talented man that makes pop punk, and I know that some people might not see Jeff Rosenstock as pop punk, but if you're going by like the general definition of it, it's punk music, and it's poppy, it's pop punk, and it's so great. It gives the genre like some sort of dignity, for as far as I'm concerned, especially with how it just seems to get worse and worse. Jeff Rosenstock, just such a talented man that not only like starts to push himself a bit on here. There's certain songs here where like you can tell that he's really pushing his vocals as far as he can. There really isn't a point where I feel like he's playing it safe. USA is like, I think it's his longest track to date, and regardless if it is or not, he is really like trying to go for like a more kind of like expansive song here that just never fails to amaze me. It just gets you absolutely pumped up. And as far as albums that are like politically driven, this never feels pandering, and never feels binary. It feels utterly dynamic. It starts to like go through the layers of things, and it's the main thing is that it's never not fun. That's the main thing going for this album. That no matter your like where you lie on the political spectrum, it's undoubtedly a fun album that just feels like it's going to be timeless. I do think this is as good as Worry. Maybe Worry is like a few points up, but the quality there isn't like a discernible difference between it. It's a very tight gap. I'll try not to go too long about this album because I've already talked about it in the last video where I was updating everybody, but all the albums missed out. JPEG Mafia, veteran, an album that no one really anticipated due to the status of JPEG Mafia prior to 2018, and he just came out with the best hip hop release of the year so far. It is, unless you think that the Death Grips one is more hip hop than anything, so maybe not that way, but it's regardless, it's the best solo hip hop effort of the year as far as I'm concerned. Just JPEG himself just shows himself as a force to be reckoned with. He's smart, he's witty, and he's just got the attitude. He does kind of show himself off as being like a unique voice in hip hop just now, and his production is just as frantic, is nightmarish at points. It's utterly fragile and just feels like it has no solid state, and that's what just makes me love this album so much. It always brings out a new favourite line or a new favourite bit of production. It's just I can see this just growing on me more and more, in the fact that I'm already rating it so much. It makes me both excited and scared how much of a grower this album is for me. Let's Eat Grandma were worried that they were going to be a novelty act when it came to their first album during like the press run, but I'm All the Ears just shows that worry can just be totally laid to rest for the girls, because they've just shown themselves as just one of the most fun and intelligent synth pop acts of the past few years. Songs like Hot Pink go to show that they'd never have to sacrifice their wit for intelligence. They bring on some great production here from both guests and from both their own doing. Their singing goes to show that they aren't just this like one Siamese being, like they are two different people. And yeah, even when they're pushing themselves and making these like big like 10-11 minute track songs, their appeal never wears thin. Bar one interlude that I think's pretty vapid, this album has like real no issues for me, no glaring issues. It was just such a fun time that I just hope starts to get more love. I know that a lot of music reviewers are giving it positive praise, but I'm really hoping that this album starts to appear in more end of the year or mid-year lists. Ironically enough, I won't try and make a rambly bit about an album that's essentially a lot of mindless rambling at points, but Mark Kozlik's self-titled effort is just one of the best bits of music he's ever put out. I know a lot of people weren't really fond of it. I know that Ollie from Deep Cut said he didn't like it, and I can totally see why people wouldn't be so big on it, because at points it does feel like it is just a bit vapid, and it can feel maybe like a slog for some people, but for me that whole rambling just works in its favour. It just starts to really engross me in Mark Kozlik's mind frame. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is totally and utterly miscellaneous, but some of the storylines we get through here where he touches on stuff like Alzheimer's and that, and other bits where it just feels like he's doubting his own impact, his own morality, and that it was utterly heartbreaking and depressing for me. And the skeletal instrumentals here just tie in to that, but they aren't any less beautiful. Mother For You is Undying. It's one of the best tracks of the year. It's a big boy. It's a big boy, but it's a big beautiful boy. And this album is a big beautiful boy.
Lay my belly on a woman.
I've already talked about my love for this album so much, to the point folk are probably bored of it. But Young Father's Cocoa Sugar was an album that I came so close to giving a 10 out of 10 when I was listening to it, just because I think for some people, I think reviewers will agree with me here, that it can sometimes feel kind of nerve-wracking to do a whole 10 out of 10, because it's like such a commitment to how you view an album. But for me, yeah, Cocoa Sugar's a 10 out of 10. Just the more I've sat on it, the more I've listened to it. Its abstractness with its lyrics, its production, its vocals, everything about it. I see people go like say like off like one or two songs that they end too abruptly. The like Fee Fi Fo Fum, that one is just like how it's vapid, it doesn't deserve to be on it, and I don't see that at all. So I'm gonna have to agree with David here and say that this is a 10 out of 10 album. 2018's had 10 out of 10 albums so far, and that's pretty exciting for me. This year's actually been really, really great, but we're not even finished here, because we've got one more album to talk about. That I put out a video or review of it, that was like a first impressions one, and I'm happy to let you guys know that I'm just as positive, if not more positive, on it. It is utterly hyperkinetic, animated, charming, haunting, just charismatic. Sophie is one of the most exciting things in music just now, and this like debut LP effort here is just such a gorgeous, unique listen that we're going to see a lot more of Sophie this year and in the following years. But oh god, she made such an impression here, and it's an album that I just haven't stopped listening to since it's came out. But yeah guys, it's been my album of the year list. Let me know if there's any albums that you guys are rating a lot that I should check out. If you disagree or agree with me in any of these choices, just let me know in the comments down below. We have this will come out on the Sunday, so check out the podcast episode from Friday if you haven't, where we talked to Josh about his new effort. I should have a review of said effort out for Tuesday, I'd imagine. I might be hungover by the time this video actually comes out because I'm out in the sun. I wonder if it's still coming home. But anyway guys, just as always, stay safe and stay hydrated.